Mr. Chairman, in recent times I've come to the House and railed against bits of legislation saying, in particular, this is no way to run a country. This piece of legislation, however, I'm really pleased to speak to because I think it is a good way to run a country. I think this piece of legislation, the Productivity Commission Bill, would provide the possibility of independent and contestable advice on one of the issues that has dogged us for the last decade and a half, at least, as we have wrestled with New Zealand's underperforming productivity. This is an area that I've been involved in intimately in my life before I came into Parliament, where we were constantly looking at how to make the provision of services in the health sector in that particular instance more efficient and effective and more productive by the association jointly of employers and employees in the workplace, by professional health practitioners and service providers and the managers of the district health boards or the entities that preceded them. And so this issue of productivity has been vexing this country for some time, and no government has been able to crack it in a sustainable way. And that's why we are pleased to join with the government on this bill, especially as it has now had its purpose expanded by the work of the Select Committee. And I want to commend all members of the Select Committee, including my colleague, the chairperson, who has put a lot of work into making sure that this piece of legislation hits all the right buttons. This is a very good model for working through issues that are beyond political tribalism. I can be as tribal as the next person. I know where my politics comes from. I know what I believe. But this is one of those things, one of those moments where it is entirely possible and not beyond the wit of this House that we come up with a system and a process which benefits New Zealand and has the fundamental well-being of New Zealand at heart. The fact that the purpose of this commission was expanded by the Select Committee is a good thing, and while, notwithstanding the Minister's comments just now on my colleague Leanne Dalzell's amendment to Clause 7, it is good that the purpose has been expanded to include the words having regard to a wide range of communities of interest and population groups in New Zealand society. I think also there is merit in my colleague's amendment, which says that in order to support the overall well-being of New Zealanders through the development of a high-wage, high-skill, sustainable economy that delivers benefits on an equitable basis to New Zealanders, I think the addition of those words would simply strengthen this legislation and strengthen the purpose of the Commission. But beyond that, Mr. Chairman, given that I understand that the Minister has signalled that that amendment will not succeed, I do ask that he looks at my colleague Leanne Dalzell's amendment to Clause 12. And here we come to the heart of the matter. Leanne Dalzell has proposed a new subclause 1b, which says, in setting the terms of reference for an inquiry, the referring ministers, not the Commission Minister, but the referring ministers, must first consult with Business New Zealand and the Council of Trade Unions to ensure that the concept of social partnership is embedded in the work of the Productivity Commission. Mr. Chairman, this is where we get to why this is a particularly good model. If we have peak organisations in this country that equally have a vested interest in productivity, then why not combine, Mr. Chairman?
Honourable Marianne Street.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Why not combine their efforts and their common interests in what has been since the 1980s called social partnership? We attempted to embed an operational modus, I suppose, a modus operandi in our 9 years in government of social partnership. And I commend it to the national government not because it's something that we supported, but it's something that in fact would benefit and create some stability for all New Zealanders. There are some issues where we do not need to have policy swings from one end of the spectrum to the other with any change of government. And this is one of them. We are as concerned about New Zealand's productivity as the members opposite. I do not doubt their concern about that, and I hope they certainly do not doubt ours. And in order to ensure that the greatest productivity can be extracted for the best possible outcome, that is the well-being and the equitable distribution of productivity across New Zealanders for everybody's advancement, then this is a tool which would allow that to happen if we understand that it does embed principles of social partnership. The principles of social partnership are very easy. They are simply respectful ones. They are the recognition that there are communities of interest in New Zealand which deserve representation at the highest level. And in that representation, they deserve to have their views and their interests spoken about and engaged with, so that areas of commonality can be found. As there have been over the 9 years that we were in government, there were substantial areas of commonality between Business New Zealand and the Council of Trade Unions. And let me give one example of that, and that is skills training. Skills training. The government abolished the skills strategy and has done very little in that space since it came into office. But the skills strategy is exactly the area of common ground that one could characterise as the best kind of social partnership. So embedding that notion of social partnership has very practical outcomes, and they can be applied not only in the upskilling of the labour force, which is clearly required by all evidence to date, clearly required if New Zealand is going to become more productive, but it also provides greater stability for moving forward in this country. This does not need to be something that is addressed by tribalism. This is something that can be addressed jointly. We are mature enough, if we are mature enough, in fact, to have a productivity commission that will provide contestable and independent advice to ministers, then we are mature enough to embed in our processes and our legislation this notion of social partnership. This isn't a quaint left-wing notion. This is about moving modern mixed economies forward. And whatever the pedigree of the notion, it doesn't matter now. What does matter is that this bill and the amendments that my colleague Leanne Dalzell has put forward really serve to embed this idea of a cooperative social partnership which can benefit, in this case, the productivity of this country. So, Mr. Chairman, there are issues here that are extremely practical and would have very practical effects. Upskilling is one of them, but also promoting the ideas that events and workshops on productivity and educational tools and things of that sort might be paraded around the country in a jointly sponsored effort by the major social partners in this endeavour to to increase New Zealand's productivity are very sensible suggestions to that end.
Paseta Sam Lutu.